What's good, everyone? This is Dr. Nee Darko. Make sure you hit the subscribe button below so that you're always up to date on the new uploads as well as alerts on this show. The other thing that you can do to help build this community is make sure you leave a comment below. Let us know what you like, what you don't like about the show, and ultimately, let us know who's winning these arguments, because I need to know that I'm beating Renee in these debates. Run the tape. Yo, what's good, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Docs Outside the Box. It's your boy, Dr. Nee. I'm joined by Kiara. What's good? Welcome. How you doing?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
I'm excellent. Stressed. I got a whole bunch of different things going on. Let me just quickly tell everybody, as I said in the previous episodes, sandwich generation here. I'm here. There's some people who are listening to the show. You know exactly what I mean. You're in that late 30s, 40s, maybe even 50s. You're taking care of your parents. But we got a big trip coming up. We're going back to Ghana, taking the parents there for an extended trip, maybe 3 months or so, and see how it goes. But it's a lot of pressure, right? When you're packing, not just for yourself, but you're also packing for your parents, and they can't really help you that much. And it's crazy. You know, it's just like you're trying to pack medication. You're trying to pack all these different things that you anticipate. Ghana has a lot of things that we have here, but sometimes from an electrical standpoint or from a tech standpoint, they have it, but it's just in a different voltage. So those are things that I'm trying to keep track of. We need some durable medical equipment, so that's going to be a pain in the butt to get packed, but we're almost there. And so that's going to be a trip that I think will be really fulfilling for me, but also really fulfilling for my parents, because as they get older, I think that they've always, mentioned to me that they wanted to go back home. I think it came to a point where they just didn't know how to do that anymore, right? And they didn't know exactly how to verbalize it, more so than just saying, hey, I want to go home. So for me, the fulfilling part is having them kind of help them reach the finish line of, them coming to the United States, particularly my dad. He came to the United States on a boat, right? And then
Wow.
he spent like 3 weeks on a boat going from Ghana all the way to Elizabeth, New Jersey, right? And from there, he ended up in New York and kind of made things happen. And then, my mother came shortly afterwards, and then, we kind of just, the Darkos just started populating the United States. And you just like, your parents are your parents. They got everything on lock, right? And then you start to realize as you get older, I started to realize as I got older, I'm like, oh, they really don't have this on lock. And, maybe about 15 years ago, I think the first time I really realized that I needed to take care of things was in fellowship. When I finished fellowship and I found out that my dad had prostate cancer, he was very nonchalant about it, but he also seemed like he was in the dark about things. And that was the first time that I had to change the trajectory of what I was doing on the basis of my parents. I've never had to do that before, right? It was always just, look, I got to go to school, just make it happen. And that's it. You get further and further away from your parents. That's just how life is. My dad did it when he was in his mid-20s. He left Ghana, came to the United States, a whole new world, and started. That's just what I'm going to do. But when my dad got sick, I was like, oh, man, I left fellowship early, actually, and came home and started doing locums, and decided I was going to stay home. And when I stayed home, I started looking at all the bills, and I was looking at all these bills that were not paid or these bills that were in arrears. My dad, he's very hard-headed. He's very stubborn, but he's a very proud man. He works very hard. So I was like asking my dad about all these different things, and trying to get an answer out of him sometimes could be really difficult. But basically what it boiled down to is that he was scared through this whole process. So I took him to his doctor, the urologist, and we figured out what the plan was going to be. We got a second opinion, and we figured it out. And I would change my locum schedule to make sure that every time he got his radiation treatments, I was there for it. And then I was able to make a plan with my sisters so that they can help him. And it worked. And that's really the basis of me kind of doing locums right out of fellowship, falling in love with, wow, like I can make my work wrap around my lifestyle. That's something I wasn't used to at all. So
Do you
from
do
that
you think
point,
you would have
yeah,
you would have been able to do that if you had gone the traditional route?
no.
No. Are you the only doctor? And you're the only boy, right? Your
Yeah, I'm the only
sisters.
boy. My sisters, my three older sisters, out of my three older sisters, my youngest sister, she's a nurse anesthetist. My mother is a nurse, was a nursing aide. So in terms of medical background, kind of medical adjacent with my mother, and then my sister became a nurse, and then I became a doctor. And yeah, it's a little crazy. So then throughout that process, over the next several years, it goes from, okay, dad, let me help you with prostate cancer to mom, dad, I think, you know, like even small things like I had a Jetta, a 1999 Jetta. So this is around 2012 now. I had a 99 Jetta. So I was like, when I started doing locums, I go to different states. And when I come home, like I rarely needed my car. But at the point where I gave my parents the car, it was like 135,000 miles on it. I had been through Kansas City, Jersey, Atlanta, Miami. I was like, just keep my car, right? And I just started noticing like just more and more like taking over with their lives, taking them to their doctor's appointments, and then even when I got married, same thing. Like it was just helping them more and more. And now it's like you start to realize like 10 years ago, you guys should have tried to move back to Ghana to kind of finish the circle, right? To kind of retire and stuff. But they just economically couldn't do it, or financially, or, just emotionally couldn't do it. So now we are finishing that. And I don't know how long they'll stay. They'll probably stay for several months and then come back. But we here and we leave tomorrow, actually.
Well, tomorrow technically wouldn't be tomorrow when the recording goes out.
Yeah, but we ain't got to tell them, though. For everybody listening, tomorrow is that whenever it is tomorrow for you, that's when I'm out. So, but that could have been a week from now, or a week later, actually, or a week before. I don't know. So if anybody's listening, if you know what I'm talking about, let us know if you are part of the sandwich generation, or if you have similar dreams or hopes to like kind of help your parents out and you're not sure exactly what to do. But low key, the other thing too is we got a caseworker from my parents' insurance, and they helped us. There's this program called PAD, like the prescription. Basically, it's a prescription help for old people, right? Old, folks.
Yeah.
And my dad has a history of clots, and he takes Eliquis, which is a blood thinner. And that shit is expensive as hell. Like a 30-day supply. Like those are the things that I've been helping my parents with and my sisters. Like when you think about like there's this huge donut hole, right? Like where if you can kind of think of prescription coverage almost like a donut, right? There's in between, right? Like there's a hole in the middle, and then before you get to the hole, there's like, the donut.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that part of the donut you can imagine is coverage, right? And then once they reach a certain point past that, once they keep, using medications, there's a hole there that doesn't cover anything anymore. And that came out, Medicare Part D came out when I was in medical school. So this is during Bush's time. This is Medicare Part D. And that was the big issue, is it provides a good amount of coverage, but there's a portion where if you go past a certain amount of coverage, like you're on your own.
Insurance has
But
got to be the biggest scam ever. Insurance across the board, home
listen,
insurance,
listen,
car
a
insurance.
man, a man woke up in the morning from his hotel room, left his hotel room, and was going to a meeting and got shot in cold blood on video. And nobody gave a damn about him. And it mainly is because he worked for an insurance company, right? He was a CEO of an insurance company. That is how bad the public sentiment is on insurance companies, right? And like I said, like we value life. I'm a doctor. You're a basic human being, so you value life. But a lot of people are pissed off at insurance companies that ire, that upsetness when it's pointed to that CEO. It's like, whatever. People
Well,
rather talk about
let's
how good
also not
looking
let's not disregard the fact
the
that it
guy is.
happens in New York.
Hello? I've just shot somebody. I did it on purpose. Hey, shut up down there.
Where in New York in general, it's very much you didn't see nothing, you can't say nothing. You didn't hear nothing.
Word. But we saw this though. We
No,
saw it.
we saw it. We just not gonna say nothing. That's crazy because first of all, that's just New York culture in general.
Yes.
But even across the board, even if it had happened in another state, I feel like we've become so desensitized to human beings in general.
Yes. Yes, we've become a very voyeuristic type of world, where we, in essence, want to watch the dumpster fire, but we really don't want to participate, right? Like you'll see people get into these fights, they get knocked out, someone is in a seizure, and like the camera won't is staying steady on the person, which means the person is still watching, still, keeping that camera on that person while the person is going through a seizure and stuff. Or, the whole thing with the woman on the train, the New York train getting put on fire. Like this is crazy. But I can't, but can you officially say that, like, let's say this was 20 years ago or 15 or 30 years ago, people would actually do something? I just think that's our nature, right? We just want to watch and see what's going on. That's the whole essence of rubbernecking, right?
Yeah.
People just want to see what's going on. So, yeah, I mean, I think the
Well,
insurance situation is bad. And I think that, a lot of people, like when you think about insurance companies and what they do, in essence, they take a whole bunch of money from you, right? And you could be a state. It could be you as an individual or you as an employer or what have you. And they give you whatever they give you back is less in value than what you gave them, right? So if you give them $100, they give you, in essence, $20 worth of coverage. That's how they make their profits.
well, yes. And then I mean, when you think about it, so the deductibles, like you're telling me in order for
Yeah.
me to use the thing that I already paid for, I have to pay more?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Because like,
Crazy.
what are you doing with the money that I already gave you? I haven't used it in, let's say, I had insurance for 5 years. I haven't used it in 5 years. I need it now today. And you're telling me that I have to give you more money. Like, what'd you do with the past 5 years worth of whatever I gave you?
Don't you see the big ass nice building? That's the tallest building in the city.
I know but it's like, that's what you're using the funds for. It's like, it's a scam.
Yes.
Insurance
Yes.
is a scam.
It's a legalized Ponzi scheme. I think that's the best way everybody can describe it. It's a legalized and a federally upheld Ponzi scheme. And at this point, it's too big to fail.
Yeah. So
It's crazy. It's crazy.
there was something I was going to say to lead us into the pit, but I know you
Oh,
had
before we get to the pit real quick, there is a email that we got from Dr. O. Let me read that real quick. So Dr. O has her own podcast, but she reached out to us, and this is a comment about the episode that I recorded with Dr. Jordan and his book about purpose. And he says, I hope your holiday season was rejuvenating and that the new year is off to a promising start. Just wanted to drop a note to say kudos to you and Renee on your latest podcast on navigating purpose. It really spoke to me as I prepare for a career transition and influence how I reflect on my meaning, the past, and purpose, the future. Keep up the great work. Take good care. Sincerely, Dr. O. So just want to give a shout out to Dr. O. She knows who she is. I hope you start your podcast. I wish you all the luck with that, or restart your podcast. I wish you all the luck with that. And that episode with Dr. Jordan Grummett, that was a really good episode. I think how like I still find it really, like, I was listening to a podcast yesterday, the Joe Budden podcast, which is one of my favorite podcasts, and they were debating, who is, like, what's a rapper's rapper? And what I mean by that is, who's a rapper that when they rap and when they put out lyrics, like other rappers like aspire to get to, and they can quote their lyrics just like that, right? And I kind of look at it like in terms of podcasting, like, is there a podcaster that I listen to that I'm like, man, I just want to be just like that person, right? That part is very interesting, right? But with Dr. Jordan, whenever I listen to his podcast, when he comes on the show, whenever he writes his books, he's somebody that when I listen to him, I'm like, damn, man, like he is very good. He's an excellent communicator, right? Like he's really good at communicating, and he was able to communicate verbally as well as in a written form that, purpose is in two forms. And I'm going to give a book review very shortly, but he's an excellent communicator. And I'm glad that people really, like that show. So
I'm going to have to read the book. I need to work on
it's
my
a good book.
communication. I'm not even going to lie.
Communication is half the battle, yo. Communication is half the battle, Kiara, as you know.
I know.
I've seen it. I've seen doctors have really bad communication skills. Like I've seen doctors will talk to patients' families and be like, yeah, this patient has, cephalohematoma of this and broken this. And the patients are just looking at them like, or the families are like, I don't know what that means, And I think part of communication is understanding who you're talking to And it's okay to kind of just like make things a little bit more lay so that people understand. And it's the same thing with podcasting. Like, how can you express and reach the people who are listening right now and help them understand things like, yeah, I'm with you. I understand what you're talking about, and go from there. So, boom.
So in the military, we call it Barney style. So you know how
Barney
Barney kind of,
style. Okay.
yeah, you remember Barney, the
Like
big
Barney
purple
Fife.
dinosaur? No,
Oh,
the
Barney.
Barney, the
Okay.
dinosaur.
You see, Baby Bop? Please and thank you are like magic words.
Are they?
They help people get along together, and that's a kind of magic.
Barney, you're being silly.
What did you say, punk?
Okay. I love
Yeah.
you.
Yes,
Yeah.
but you know how he used to break everything down like, oh, this is, happy, and happy is da 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 da, and just kind of just break it down to layman's terms, like you're
Mhm.
explaining it to children. That's how we say it. And it's like, I need you to break it down. When I don't understand something, I need you to break it down Barney style. Explain it to me like you're trying to explain it to a child.
Mm-hmm. I got you. Well, that's I agree with you. I always say so it's funny you mentioned that. I say talk to me like I'm a fourth grader. Or actually no, I say talk to me like you're a 4-year-old. Like I'm a 4-year-old.
Yes.
Explain it to me. Even like my financial advisor, explain it to me like I'm a 4-year-old. I don't understand what you're talking about. Am I broke or do I have some money? Help me out.
Yes. I don't need you to tell me the technical terms and look, I didn't go to school to be a CPA. So I need you to explain it to me like a regular basic human being.
Correct. And that's where the power is at, though. When you don't explain things to people, sometimes it's like there is a sense of, well, I understand this more than you do, and there is like we tend to revere people more if we don't really understand it, but we think the person is a good guy and stuff. That's just the way how it is. Like you go to your mechanic. If you go to your mechanic and they tell you something, like I'd say the majority of people, 99% of people do not understand what the hell the mechanic is talking about. But, if they seem like a nice guy or girl, they'll be like, all right, well, yeah, just go ahead and fix my CV joint that's probably doesn't need to be fixed. Right? Am I lying?
No, it's
You
true.
just trust them. You just trust them and that's it, and
Because it
the
sounds
same thing works
good.
in doctor. Yeah, the same thing goes with doctors. Like you have someone who comes in, my right side hurts. It's right up here. My right side hurts. It's right up here. I think it's your gallbladder. And it could be your gallbladder, could not be your gallbladder, but you trust that person to say, yeah, this is the reason why. Like you don't have the ability to review the test, and even if you looked at the test, how do you know to interpret that this is the reason why you're having pain? You just have to trust that person who's interpreting everything and has gone through school understands everything that makes you have pain in that area. It's scary.
I feel like there's a difference, right? So you're good at your job because you know how to do it. You're great at your job if you know how to teach others to do it.
No doubt. 100%. I agree with
If
you.
that
100%.
makes sense. I don't know.
The ability for you to teach something is shows a certain level of mastery. So me and Renee would go back and forth about this in med school. Like when we would study together, I study well by myself. Renee, I don't know how she does it, but I would study on my own. And then right before a test, right? Let's say a test will come at the end of 6 weeks. So we would do what's called blocks, right? So you would study neurology or the brain or the neurosystem for 6 weeks. And in between that time, you would have some quizzes and some tests. But at the end of 6 weeks was the big block examination. So me and Renee, like the night before, we would go to another school. There's a library there that was open 24/7. And we would just study with each other and ask each other questions. And, she was just finishing being a teacher. So she would say, like, teach it to me like, I'm one of your students, or explain this to me like I'm one of your students. I'd get really frustrated about that. But what she was trying to help me to understand is that, well, I understand that you can memorize it and I understand that you understand it. But if you can verbalize it, speak it, and take it from what you see on the textbook to how I can understand it or help me to understand it, then you definitely got this. And that was the key for me, and as I said in the previous episode, med school wasn't that, I didn't have that many difficulties with med school in terms of the academics, the emotional, the financial things, those were really crazy. But from an academic standpoint, like, I don't know why, but it worked. And I'd do it again if I could, actually. It was fun.
I say it all the time.
Again.
I say that about the military. I'm like, it was like the best, worst time.
Right? I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, yo, it sucked, but I'll do it
You're at
again.
the
It
top
was
of your
like,
game.
yes.
Yeah, you're at the top of your game.